Part 19. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 181. Chapter 181 Damn Hostages. Almost at the same time, a bearded scream sounded, "Ah!" The man in sunglasses was not far from him. He turned around and saw that the boss's uninjured hand was pierced by the dagger. The gun in his hand fell down and his face turned pale. Not just because he saw the tragic image of his boss, but because the dagger had just been slashed against his ear, and he could even feel the slight sting of the skin on his ear being scratched. That feeling is like saving a life, frightened and terrified. Originally, Beard was shooting with his uninjured hand, but now both hands were injured. He screamed in pain, but it made him even crazier. "I'm going to kill you, ah dash." He was cursing angrily, but his hands were injured and the gun was dropped. He could only turn his head and glare at the man in sunglasses who was standing still. "Boy, kill her, kill her." If the man in sunglasses had had this idea before, his mind was completely blank at this moment. He has never seen such a powerful woman. This woman weighs more than he has ever known in his life. "What are you still doing in a daze? Move." The siren sounded loudly in the sky outside, and the flashing light of the siren came from the window. The beard was stunned for a moment, called the police. Run. They are all wanted on a nominal basis. If they are caught, they will probably never come out in this life. He and the man in sunglasses tried to run out, but Suyun seized the opportunity and ran upstairs. Rosen wanted to take the opportunity to attack her. As soon as he rushed forward, he stumbled and fell to the ground, and instead grabbed the girl who was running out. "Bearded. Let go, Lo," she cursed nonsensically. He wanted to run away, but had no intention of thinking about why the woman ran upstairs, but Rosen held her tightly and wouldn't let her go. "You can't leave, you have to take me with you. If the police find out, he will not get anything good, and Rosen doesn't want to lose it here." "Boss, it's too late," the man in sunglasses shouted. Immediately afterwards, the whole house was lit up, and many police officers were surrounded outside. The loudspeakers began to shout, "People inside, listen, you are surrounded. You can't run away, hurry up and take the hostages, let it go." Beard. Man in sunglasses. Damn hostages. Upstairs, the driver was unable to move. He only heard the ringing gunshots outside and didn't know what the situation was like. Of course, from the bottom of his heart, he hoped that his brother could succeed, and maybe he could take revenge on the woman severely. But after waiting for a while, there was no movement. Instead, he heard the sound of the siren. The sound was getting closer and closer, and the light was getting brighter and brighter. He became more and more panicked. What should he do? "I can't run even if I want to." Just when he was anxious, the door was suddenly knocked open, and a man came in like a gust of wind. Before he could see what was going on, he felt that his tight body suddenly relaxed, as if he could move. He was confused and tried to move his hand. Can he really move it? Then he looked at the woman squatting in the corner, blinked, and didn't come back to consciousness for a long time. What does it mean? She has nothing to do, so the boss and the second boss failed? If it failed, why did she rush up to relieve herself? Succeeded? He couldn't understand, and then he heard the police shouting below, and he swallowed. "You! Shut up," Suyun scolded. Even though it was only 2 words, he subconsciously stopped speaking, for fear that if he said one more word, her tongue would be cut out. The situation downstairs is unclear, but if you don't run now, you really have no chance. After thinking about it, he got up and ran to the window to look downstairs. He saw only dense crowds of people, and his legs suddenly felt weak. Why are so many people coming? He couldn't care much anymore. He touched his waist and found a gap with few people. He wanted to take advantage of the chaos to escape, but he heard a cold voice coming from behind him, "If you dare to run, I'll interrupt. Do you believe your legs?" The driver's legs softened and he slid directly from the window. Letter. Why doesn't he believe it? There's nothing this devil can't do. But, she untied her own hole but didn't kill him or let him go. What on earth was she going to do? "Auntie, what do you want?" He almost knelt down and begged for mercy. "Stay here and look at me," she said coldly, her eyes looking over her, as cold as knives. The driver immediately stood up straight and responded, "Yes." But the next second, he felt something was wrong. Look at her?" Soon, he knew what the sentence meant. Unable to hear any movement inside, the police planned to break in. The man in sunglasses tried to resist, but was directly shot dead by a sniper. When the police rushed in, they only saw a man with a beard in the hall, his hands pricked. There was a man lying on the ground with only half a life left, and there was no one else. Handcuffed the person quickly, and then a group of people rushed upstairs. Report, find the hostage. One of the teams found Renzheng. Sci-Yao, who had been following the police operations, rushed in, but what he saw was a strange woman, not her. Others continued to search, but the driver in the room could hear what was happening outside, and he was anxious to death. It's neither possible nor necessary to run now. There is a large group of police outside, and there is a female devil in the house. Why is he so unlucky? Don't move, a row of guns pointed at him in the dark. Put your hands up and let go of the hostages. Immediately raised his hands very obediently. Forget it, it would be better to be arrested than to face this female devil, but, what hostage should I let go? He is the hostage, okay. Miss Su, one of the policemen asked. Su Yun raised her head, with tears still on her face. It's me, Liu. Driver. You are crying. I'm the one who wants to cry, okay. Don't be afraid, Miss Su, you are already safe, we. A tall figure rushed over quickly and squeezed to the front. Su Yun. Su Yun. He opened his eyes wide and forgot to shed tears. He stared at him blankly, his whole body was dumbfounded. Why are you here? Him, shouldn't he be in the country? When did you come? Sci-Yao strode over and hugged her into his arms. It's okay, it's okay. Don't be afraid, I'm coming. Su Yun. Driver. He took off his coat and put it on her body, protecting her carefully. I'm sorry, I was late, you suffered. There were still wet tears on her cheeks, which made Sci-Yao heartbroken. When I thought about her being kidnapped, these were extremely vicious gangsters. When I thought about the suffering she might endure, I wanted to crush these people into ashes. Is she suffering? The driver couldn't hold back and shouted. End of this chapter. S.I. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 182. Chapter 182. She is very good. It is obviously them who are suffering. It is really hard to describe the suffering. Be honest, Su Yun didn't even need to glare at him, the police had already kicked him hard. Driver, woo-woo, I really want to cry. It's so frustrating to ride on a horse. Let's go, it's too scary here, I don't want to stay here, she said softly, tilting her head in the direction of Sci-Yao. Okay, let's go. Sci-Yao came here with the French police. He couldn't find anyone, so he contacted the local police first. So when Su Yun's police call came, he immediately received the police notification and followed him over. Now that the person was saved, there was still some confession process to go through. He told the person in charge that after Su Yun calmed down a little, he would record a supplementary confession, and then he took her and the unconscious little one directly with him. The assistant went back together. Is there anything uncomfortable? Although he had already checked it, it was outside and it was not easy to check it carefully, so Sci Yao still felt uneasy after just taking a quick look. After arresting the people, the police discovered that these people were internationally wanted criminals and had been on the run for a while. Unexpectedly, they were caught here, which was an unexpected gain for them. However, the internationally wanted criminals must be extremely vicious, and she was helpless and scared during the time when she was kidnapped. Sci Yao thought and hugged her tighter. "It's nothing, just a little tired." She shook her head and nestled in his arms meekly. "I'm just a little tired. After all, I've been fighting for a long time and even had a small gunfight. Now my bones are sore and I don't want to move at all." But to my surprise, Sci Yao also came. She had thought that he would be anxious if he found out that she was missing, but she did not expect that he would fly over across the ocean and join the rescue operation with the police. This feeling of being taken seriously, taken into consideration, and held in the palm of your hand is really great. "Then go back and have a good rest," Sci Yao said softly, not wanting to irritate her by saying too much. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of the little assistant who had been thrown into the back seat of the car. He had taken him out of the cabin like that. He had left him in the back seat untouched. Didn't he wake up from such a big movement? He couldn't help but frown. What's wrong with her? Suyun looked back at Renjeng, sympathetic and amused, and pursed her lips. She seems to have been drugged, and she hasn't woken up yet. Drug. He was too nervous about her, so he didn't think about it that much, and he didn't think deeply about the details. Now that he heard her talk about being drugged, he remembered when she was kidnapped. Yes, Suyun nodded. They pretended to be Lisa's people and said that Lisa had something important to see me and must meet immediately. Renjeng didn't trust me and had to follow me, so she was also tied up. Later in the car, I guess it was the aromatherapy seat that contained drugs, so. You missed, he was very surprised. Looking at the little assistant's appearance, there was a shootout and the police led a team to sweep the house. She didn't wake up to such a big movement, until now, but she didn't look confused at all. She paused. I actually got hit too. But maybe I've been exposed to these things a lot and have some immunity, so I woke up earlier. I don't know why she hasn't woken up yet. I don't know if she's okay. Can we find a doctor to check her out later? What she said seems to make sense. Sci Yao hummed, I want to check it out for you too and see if there's anything wrong with it. Suyun, She is very good. Zhang Shiwei was still quite unsure. After all, Rosen hadn't given her the final round of exam questions yet. He said he couldn't find out. The final round of questions will be set by the examiner himself, and there is a high probability that it will be Mr. Wu. Because the organizer did not reveal who it is in advance, it is impossible for Rosen to get the test questions even if he wants to rely on connections. Without the test questions, she has no confidence that she can win the competition. To be precise, she is like a poor student who is now participating in the national elite competition and will soon be exposed. She still wanted to discuss it with Rosen again. Even if she couldn't win the title, she would not let that little Suyun get an advantage. However, there was no one in Rosen's room at all. She knocked on the door for a long time but it didn't open, and she didn't know where the person had gone. His cell phone calls went unanswered, which made her even more confused. I have a vague bad feeling, but I can't express it. Except for a little skin injury, there is nothing wrong. Taking off the stethoscope, the doctor looked at Sci Yao and said. Sci Yao was very doubtful, really? Although this is of course the best, I still feel uneasy. Mr. Sci, please rest assured. I have done a thorough and careful examination for Miss Su, and there is indeed nothing wrong. If Miss Su is still feeling unwell, I suggest that it is best to go to the hospital for further in-depth examinations, such as CT, etc. No, no need, Suyun said quickly, I don't feel uncomfortable at all, really. The doctor looked like you can tell me what you see, so Yao nodded. Has that girl seen it? I've seen it. The drug ingredients in her body have been metabolized almost. It won't take long for her to wake up. After she wakes up, check to see if there is anything uncomfortable. If you are worried, you can also do it. A comprehensive inspection. After the doctor finished speaking, he looked at Suyun with a little doubt in his eyes. What? Seeing him like this, Yao's heart immediately jumped up again. It's nothing. Shaking his head, the doctor thought for a while and finally expressed his concerns. It's just that if Miss Su was poisoned by the same drug as Miss Ren, I didn't detect it in Miss Su's body. The ingredients of the drug. Suyun. She raised her head and smiled. Maybe my body's metabolic system is better and I metabolize faster, so it can't be detected? Didn't you just say that Ren Zheng's drug has almost been metabolized? Maybe I am faster than her. A little bit. After hesitating for a moment, the doctor nodded. It's not impossible, but if so, Miss Su's body metabolism may be much faster than that of an average adult man. Probably, I'm not too sure. She showed a sweet and harmless smile, her face looked innocent. The doctor tilted his head and looked at her. After thinking for a while, he felt that there might be such a possibility, so he left without saying anything more. Yao sat down next to her, looked at her normal expression, and asked again worriedly, is there really no discomfort? End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 183. Chapter 183 is too dirty. Not worth it? Really not, Suyun said helplessly. How about I get out of bed and spin you around twice to see if I'm really okay? As she said that, she was about to lift the quilt and get out of bed. Yao quickly pressed her down and said with disapproval, naughty. Naughty is used to describe children. Suyun shook her head. You don't believe me. I'm really fine. Don't worry. Originally I was relieved, but now how can you make me feel relieved? He sighed quietly and said, how did you provoke these people? Suyun thought for a while. I didn't know who these people were at first, but then that Rosen came, and I realized it was all his fault. This name sounds familiar. In fact, Yao had never met Rosen very often. He only heard Suyun mention it twice, and since he didn't think of him as a person at all, he didn't take it seriously. Now that I heard her mention it, it seemed a bit familiar. He was invited by Luo Yuanhang and Zhang Shiwei to help, but he is not named in their company, and I am not sure what their relationship is. However, it is true that he came for me and did not run away. So, the person named Luo is responsible. Yao narrowed his eyes slightly, his eyes full of evil. Aware of his anger, Suyun held his cheeks with both hands, looked into his eyes and shook her head. That's not necessarily true. Maybe it's Zhang Shiwei's intention, maybe it's his own intention. He seems to be interested in me. Hearing the next sentence, his eyes suddenly became sharp. What does it mean to be interested in you? Why didn't I know? Hey, a little thing. He tried to cheat on me before, but he didn't succeed and was taught a lesson by me. So I don't know if what happened this time has anything to do with it. But I can't rule out that it was because of the tasting competition. After all, Zhang Shiwei also advanced to the final round of this competition. They had a female relationship, maybe it was for lovers. She tilted her head and thought about it. These are just speculations, after all. When she asked Rosen, she didn't get an answer. That lunatic said nothing but yelling that he wanted to play with her. As a result, the police came before she could even ask about Zhou Yinmao. This unscientific. Don't people on TV always wait for things to be over and the dust has settled before they appear? They came too efficiently. No matter what it is, in short, he can't live. When he said this, Yao's whole person was full of danger. He was like an enraged beast that could bite the enemy's neck in the next second. Su Yunqing could clearly feel his anger, which also made her heart tremble. It's not that he's afraid, but he's moved and warmed. Because someone hurt her, that's why he's so angry. This anger actually means he cares. He has been captured by the police. Just because he ordered the kidnapping, colluded with internationally wanted criminals, and was involved in drugs, he will not have a good life, so don't do it yourself. As she said that, she gently held his hand. It's too dirty. It's not worth it. His fingers are slender. Although there are thin calluses on the fingertips and joints, it does not affect the perfect proportions. Such a pair of hands can make waves in the business world and make decisions in the business field, but it is contaminated by these hands. Raising human blood is not worth it. Drugs, Yao was very surprised. How do you know? If you tell him that Rosen originally planned to inject her with this thing, I'm afraid he really can't stop him from killing Rosen. After thinking for a moment, she said, when I woke up, I heard what the kidnappers said. By the way, they seem to have some samples or something there, and the police should take them as evidence. Yao listened to her quietly. Although he didn't say anything, his grip on her hand gradually tightened, showing how nervous he was. Does the kidnapper have any samples? What if she accidentally touches her? What if they use it on her? I can't even imagine it. Let's go back, he said every word. He wanted to take her back and couldn't let her stay in such a dangerous place. When he thought that if the rescue was delayed, or if he didn't fly over and rush to her side as soon as possible, he would regret it so much. Hammer yourself to death. Su-yun, who was leaning on his shoulder obediently, immediately sat up straight when she heard what he said. No. I still have the last round of competition, it's the finals. I'm not going, he said without hesitation. He doesn't care about any competitions or big prizes. He just wants her to be safe. He just wants her to be safe. Su-yun was speechless. But she could also understand his mood and knew that he was too worried about herself, so that's why he said this. Sighing faintly, she did not argue with him, but lowered her eyebrows with a disappointed look on her face. Okay, then I won't go. Although I have prepared a lot for this competition, and I think I will definitely win the award. Although the company will be disappointed and my assistant will be disappointed, it doesn't matter, nothing is as important as you. Anyway, no one in the company dares to say anything as long as you say a word. It doesn't matter what my colleagues think of me in the company. At worst, I won't do it. I will go home to be a housewife, do beauty treatments and go shopping every day. Play cards and relax. He said this, but his face was obviously full of reluctance and displeasure. Of course Yao knew she did it on purpose, but he understood her ideals and aspirations better, as well as what she wanted to do and the future she wanted. He had always supported her wholeheartedly, until just now, there was with the intention of retreating. Looking at her little face now, she said this with reluctance written all over her face. If she really did as she said, she would be like a flower that has lost the sunshine and rain and will soon wither. Go down. Yao sighed silently, but finally relaxed. Forget it, if you want to do it, just go for it. There is only one thing, you must pay attention to your own safety. In everything, you must put your own safety as the first priority. There is no one better than you, your life is more important. I knew you were the best. She quickly kissed him on the cheek and said with a smile. Yao shook his head, is this enough? Hand clasped the back of her head with one hand, he took the initiative to press his lips against hers. I want, like this. The soft lips were pressed closely together, and her nose was filled with the sweet smell that was unique to her. Only in this way did he feel more at ease. Although she did not suffer any substantial harm, there is not even the slightest possibility. Sci-Yao closed his eyes and hugged her tighter. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Ye. Chapter 184. Chapter 184 Su-Yun's doubts. Su-Yun's kidnapping has actually been suppressed as much as possible. However, the domestic media did not spread it, but it still caused a small stir in France. At least in this circle, especially those who come to participate in the tasting competition, basically everyone knows about it. Lisa was very worried. If it had not been too late and her father had stopped her, she would have come over to see her. The person who is most confused about the whole thing is assistant Ren Zheng. As a person involved in the kidnapping incident, she slept from beginning to end and had no idea what happened. She only heard about it after the doctor examined her. After reading the news, I was still very unsure and asked Su-Yun again and again, is what the news said true? Is it true? No, we were kidnapped. After seeing Su-Yun nodding affirmatively, her mouth opened wide enough to hold an apple, and she couldn't close it for a long time. Why, I don't know at all. You were drugged and have been sleeping, so it's normal that you don't know. After a pause, as if she was afraid of hurting her, Su-Yun added, the drug is very heavy. You said that the drug was already in the aromatherapy seat when you got in the car. After thinking about it, Ren Zheng asked again. Nodding, Su-Yun answered her, they actually only planned to kidnap me, but because you had to follow me, they had no choice but to kidnap you too. I'm sorry, I caused you trouble. From the bottom of her heart, she felt a little sorry for Ren Zheng. After all, it was because of herself that she got others involved for no reason. That's not the problem, then why are you okay? Ren Zheng didn't care at all why she was kidnapped. What was puzzling was that from beginning to end, she didn't feel that she had participated in the whole thing. She felt as if she had slept with someone. What a long sleep. Sci-Yao had already asked this question yesterday, and she coughed twice. You know I am a perfumer myself, so I am a bit sensitive to scents. I noticed something was wrong and covered my nose. Of course, in fact, I was also drugged, but I may be used to it and have some immunity, so you don't have to worry too much about it. In short, we are safe now. Ren Zheng didn't say anything and thought for a while. Why did they kidnap you? Su-Yun, maybe, because you don't want me to participate in the finals. Of course, it may be because of other reasons. I don't know. I have to wait for the results of the police. After finishing speaking, she deliberately changed the topic, not wanting Ren Zheng to continue to dwell on this matter. Hey, anyway, now the bad guy has been caught by the police, and we are all safe, so everyone is happy. We are about to go. When you arrive at the finals, you still don't know what the final test questions will be. Aren't you nervous at all? She deliberately looked nervous so that Ren Zheng could divert his attention. Sure enough, as soon as she became nervous, Ren Zheng immediately stopped thinking about the kidnapping and comforted her. Don't be too nervous. It's already the last round. I have full confidence in you now. And if the kidnapping, the reason is that we don't want you to participate in the finals, wouldn't that prove your strength even more? Besides, the company has no strict requirements for the final results. If we can enter the final round and get a ranking, it's already good. Take it easy. At this point, she seemed to have thought of something else. By the way, if I don't want you to participate in the finals, then the person instructing you must be a contestant in the finals. Even if not, it must be related to the contestants. This is very important. Have you told the police to check it out? Su-Yun turned her gaze helplessly out of the car window. There was nothing to talk about today. Soon we arrived at the venue for the finals. Su-Yun wore a very decent suit today, which made it easier to move around. Actually, she was no longer nervous in the last round. Perhaps the sudden kidnapping relieved her mood and diverted her attention. In fact, compared to this competition, she was more worried about her body now. I don't know if my recent thoughts are not entirely on perfume, or maybe after leaving Luo Yuanhang and Wei Lan, some of my potentials have been developed, and my body is getting worse and worse, especially when I was kidnapped this time. She could feel the power inside her body ready to move. She grew up in the environment of the Chu family and learned some kung fu skills. However, she was not considered to be a talented person in the Chu family. It was not a problem to deal with some gangsters. However, with these three internationally wanted criminals, she also felt that she was at ease. This feeling could not be achieved by ordinary martial arts practitioners. She was a little confused, but she had no time or energy to find the answer. Possibly because of the kidnapping case, as soon as she entered the finals, she was immediately noticed. As an assistant, Ren Zhen was not allowed to enter the main arena. She could only wait outside. Su Yun straightened her back and walked to her seat to sit down, then looked around briefly. To be honest, those who can come to this final are indeed of some ability. In fact, except for her and Zhang Shiwei, there is no Chinese here. From a certain perspective, there is a good reason why Rosen, or some other foreign perfumers, have contempt and disdain for the Chinese. Over the years, the Chinese, as a large country, have few well-known top perfumers. Even if they are somewhat competent, they will be unable to be used in large international circles. As for the very few who were outstanding, they either immigrated or joined research institutes in other countries, and their talents were lost one after another. This made her feel very uncomfortable. It cannot be said that she has deep patriotic feelings, but when you go abroad and face all kinds of foreigners, you have the identity of a Chinese on your head and look like a Chinese, the kind of person who can go on your own. The emotions that represent the Chinese people wherever they go will naturally extend from the body. The Chinese are despised and looked down upon, and this also includes her. I secretly started to compete in my heart. I must win today's tasting competition. Only. The strange thing is that she didn't see Zhang Shiwei at the venue. She thought that seeing her today would inevitably lead to another quarrel. She would ridicule herself, which was what he must do when he saw her. But to her surprise, she didn't see her. Zhang Shiwei didn't come late, but she didn't come at all. Throughout the finals, she didn't even have a chance to appear. Because Zhang Shiwei, who was dressed elegantly and was about to go out to participate in the finals and wanted to do well, was stopped by the police, who came to her door as soon as she went out. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 185. Chapter 185 Finals. What are you going to do? She was a little frightened and looked at the police in front of her in a panic. Naturally, she had also heard about Su Yun's kidnapping, but the police did not reveal who the kidnapper was. She carefully read all the news reports and only knew that 3 internationally wanted criminals had kidnapped Su Yun. As for the reason was not specified in detail. She just felt a little pity. She had already been kidnapped, so why wasn't she killed? Even if she hadn't been voted out, she should have been rescued later, at least so that she wouldn't be able to participate in the finals. But she, Su Yun, was so lucky. Not only was she rescued, but she was also unscathed and nothing happened at all. It was really irritating. Furthermore, Rosen could not be contacted so far, which made her even more uneasy. She always felt that this matter might have something to do with him, but she was not sure. But it doesn't matter even if there is a relationship. In recent days, she has found more and more that Rosen is unreliable and has no use value at all. I used to think that as long as I hugged his thigh, I could step into the international circle and get close to internationally renowned perfumers. However, After arriving in France, I realized that Rosen was notorious. She couldn't survive, so she went to other countries to cheat. How could she possibly lead her to the top? After thinking about this, she was ready to find an opportunity to get rid of Rosen and find another big tree. From her point of view, that Mr. Will is perfect. He is very old, has all the status, and is a serious top perfumer. As long as she can catch up with him, her future will be unlimited. So, before she went out to participate in the finals, she dressed herself up carefully. Even if she couldn't win the competition, as long as she got Mr. Will's attention, she would win. But what I didn't expect was that the police would stop me before I even left the house. Zhang Shiwei, Miss Zhang, the policeman showed his ID. Now it is suspected that you are related to a kidnapping case. Please go back and assist in the investigation. You don't have to speak, but what you say will become evidence in court. Zhang Shiwei was confused for a moment and laughed dryly. Did you make a mistake? Me? A kidnapping case? How is that possible? Really, just come with us and you'll find out. The policeman had already taken out the handcuffs. Seeing the shiny silver handcuffs, she immediately panicked. No. I have to participate in the finals. Today is very important to me. You must have made a mistake. I have been in the hotel these days. How can I participate? What kidnapping case? Who am I kidnapping? Oh, by the way, it's Suyun. It must be Suyun who told you, right? I'm telling you, Suyun has a grudge against me. She is trying to frame me on purpose. It's really not me. Can you let me go to the finals? This competition is very important to me. I beg you. Even if you have to, let's go after the game is over. She stepped back again, and all the words she could think of to explain her situation came to her. As soon as the police mentioned the kidnapping case, she guessed that it was about Suyun. However, why did they find her? It had nothing to do with her at all. Although she had given guidance to Rosen before and given him advice, she had not yet thought of the entire action plan. This matter really had nothing to do with her. I'm sorry, you have to come with us. The handcuffs were slapped on her wrists, and she couldn't help but refuse. No. Zhang Shiwei wanted to say something else, but facing the police, she had no chance to refuse. Just like that, she was taken away before the finals. The finals began, but the exam questions were not revealed for a long time. Instead, many hostesses came in from one side of the venue, each holding a tray in their hands and wearing a decent smile. Everyone was wondering what this was for, and then they saw these hostesses putting trays in front of them. The lid of the tray was opened almost at the same time. Inside were 2 bottles of perfume that looked exactly the same from the outer packaging, but the perfume bottles had different labels. The host spoke, "Everyone, please be quiet. First of all, congratulations to everyone for reaching the final round of the competition. Those who can reach this point are all the best among perfumers. However, in France, the cradle of perfumers, there is still a long way to go to become a top perfumer. Today is the final, the last game of the competition. I hope everyone can take it seriously and show your best." After a pause, he continued, "Each of you has 2 bottles of perfume in front of you. Your test questions are all the same. Of these 2 bottles of perfume, one is made by a mid-level perfumer, and the other is Mr. Will's. Each of you should analyze the work. With paper and pen in front of you, write down the ingredients of the 2 bottles of perfume. Also, write down any advantages and disadvantages. In the end, the one with the most correct answers will win. If the answer is the same, the one with the shortest time wins." Then he picked up the timer and said, "Start." When the timer started, the competition officially began. Almost everyone picked up the 2 bottles of perfume, but they were not in a hurry to open them and smell them. After all, they are all professional level perfumes. You should first observe the color of the perfume, smell it through the bottle to see if there is any smell, and finally open the cap and let the fragrance float into your nose little by little, from light to light, and finally spray a little on yourself. On your wrist, you can feel the scent of the perfume after it evaporates. Everyone went step by step. Soo-yoon picked up the bottle and read the label first. She could also see the bottles in front of others. They all had the same label. The name of the mid-level perfumer and Mr. Weir's name were clearly written on them. It's really rare to tell you who did it so clearly. It is usually covered up, and it may not even tell you who made it in the first place, so that people will not be affected by the outside world and can distinguish the perfume itself. After all, in this industry, it is not easy to be at the top, so invisibly, there is an instinctive worship of the masters. Of course, some people admire you, and some people want to defeat you, so there are extreme emotions. Now the examiner has made it clear that one is an ordinary perfumer and the other is Mr. Wool. In addition, the bottle itself has told you that, in fact, it will have a certain impact on the judgment of the contestants. She raised her eyes and glanced at the examiner, who was patrolling above with a serious face, looking selfless. Then she looked at Zhang Shiwei's famous seat, which was still empty. She really wasn't here. After thinking for a while, she brought one of the bottles of perfume close to her nose and sniffed it gently. A very elegant fragrance floated over gently. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 186. Chapter 186. Is this the level now? The whole process didn't take very long, about half an hour, and people were already handing in papers one after another. The number of people in the venue was gradually decreasing, but Soo-yoon didn't finish writing anymore. The ingredients are actually easy to distinguish and I wrote them out quickly. But what's more interesting about these two perfumes is that they have very similar smells. Not only are they similar in color, but also the smell of the middle part of the first fragrance is similar. The advantages and disadvantages are generally the same, which is worth pondering. Seeing that everyone else answered quickly, a few were a little hesitant, but after thinking for a while, they all finished answering the questions, and in the end there were only a few people left. There are still 10 minutes left. If you don't hand in the paper, you will be deemed to have given up your qualification. The examiner looked at the time and said. With that said, the few people who hesitated at the end all finished writing. Soo-yoon took a final whiff of the lingering fragrance, raised the corners of her lips slightly, and quickly finished the last few words. After handing in the papers and going out, I found that none of the people who had handed in the papers had left. They were all arranged to wait in a large room. It seemed that the results were about to be announced on the spot. Because the last test has been completed, everyone is in a very relaxed state. In addition, after all, they participated in the competition together a few days ago, so they are familiar with each other and start chatting with each other. I think Mr. Weir's perfume is really good, and its skills are beyond the comparison of ordinary people. It can be said that it is a very unique idea. I think this perfume will definitely become an international bestseller this year, one of them said. Several people on the side agreed, but someone raised objections and expressed disdain. Come on. Do you really think it was made by Mr. Wool? Do you think it is what is written on the bottle? That's it, that's not the case at all, just to see those of you who like to flatter me. Can't you smell something wrong with that perfume? You are still a perfumer. Go home and take care of your children. The woman who was being mocked suddenly turned red and said angrily, why can't I smell it? Mr. Will's perfume uses a variety of floral fragrances, and the essential oils in it are also specially prepared. You don't understand. Just don't laugh at others. Also, don't laugh at women, you were raised by a woman as well. The talk turned into a personal attack, and a quarrel was about to begin. Now they are basically divided into two groups. One group believes that Mr. Will's level is indeed outstanding and is higher than ordinary people. The other group believes that it is not Mr. Will's handiwork at all. The reason why the organizer did this is in order to confuse the audience and make people think it is Mr. Weir's work. They will make wrong judgments. The two sides were bustling with people, almost ready for a fight. Soo-yoon did not participate in anyone, and just stood in the corner where no one noticed and silently ate the melon. You don't seem to agree with their views, suddenly someone said next to her. She turned her head and looked over to make sure that the other person was indeed talking to her because his eyes were looking at her. This is a man who looks to be of Asian descent. Unlike these European blondes, his hair is black and his eyes are black. His entire facial features look very Asian, and he is quite good looking. Soo-yoon didn't pay much attention to the other contestants before, so she didn't have much impression of him, but the one who is still standing here is obviously a contestant. The reason why she said Asians, not Chinese, was because she was sure that except for her and Zhang Shiwei, no Chinese had reached the finals. I don't seem to have said a word. She shook her head, smart enough not to take sides. But the man was obviously more interested in her than in the excitement there, but your look tells me that you don't agree with both views. Soo-yoon raised her hand and touched her face. Soo-yoon said, "Is there anything written on my face?" "You don't have it written on your face, but it's written in your eyes. Your eyes are very wise." He communicated with her in Chinese, and he spoke Chinese fluently. "You speak Chinese very well." Without answering his words, Soo-yoon gave an irrelevant compliment. "Thank you for the compliment." The man accepted it happily and introduced himself generously. "Hello, my name is Hee-jin." Speaking, he stretched out a hand towards her with a smile on his face. Standing up, Soo-yoon had no interest in shaking hands with him. It's about to end. The organizers had already come out and asked them to return to the venue. The noise immediately subsided a lot, which made her ears feel better. Returning to her seat, she saw the man diagonally behind her. No wonder she had no impression of him before. Seeing her looking at him, the man happily waved to her. Soo-yoon glanced at him, then withdrew her gaze and looked forward with an expressionless expression. "I'm not familiar with it, so why are you so enthusiastic?" "Everyone's answer sheets have been reviewed. Due to many considerations, we have decided to announce the final results now, but before announcing them, Mr. Will has something to say that he would like to talk to you about." After saying that, the examiner stood up and stepped aside. "Mr. Will, please." The venue burst into warm applause, and the majestic old man who always looked meticulous walked in amid the applause. Wearing a straightly ironed suit, he took steady and powerful steps. He walked to his seat, looked around first, and then sat down. Soo-yoon didn't know if it was an illusion, but Soo-yoon felt that when he looked at her, his eyes seemed to pause. It can't be because it's Lisa. Although Mr. Will is a bit headstrong, he should disdain nepotism. "I'm very happy to see you. Those who can come here are all the best in the past 2 years." Mr. Will cleared his throat and said. Before these people could get happy, his face darkened and he added, "But I'm also very unhappy to see you. Are our perfumers at this level now?" His words completely confused people, and they didn't know what they meant. Before these people had time to laugh, the smiles had already frozen on their faces. That expression was really embarrassing. Soo-yoon thought it was a bit funny and pursed her lips without saying a word. "Mr. Will, why do you say that? If we have done something wrong, you can criticize us, but don't you feel satisfied with anyone who came here today?" one of them said. He said unconvinced. "Mr. Will, in fact, the test question just now was deliberately misleading. In fact, among the 2 bottles, none of them are your works at all, right?" It seems that in order to confirm his own ideas, someone has already raised it. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 187. Chapter 187, First Place. Mr. Will looked at him and asked instead, "What do you think?" The man was speechless for a moment. What did he think? That's what he felt, so he asked. "So are you sure that's the case, or do you guess that's the case?" Mr. Will continued, and his words confused many people as to what he meant. "Obviously, judging from your answers, quite a few people have the same idea as this gentleman, right?" he continued to ask. There is no answer below, but even if you don't read the answer sheet, judging from their quarrel just now, many people do agree. "What about the others?" After a final round of inspection, he said, "Announce the results." The examiner on the side nodded respectfully, and then stepped forward to announce the results. A total of 10 people were selected, starting from the 10th place. What surprised Soo-yoon was that Hee-jin turned out to be the second place, and she subconsciously looked back. He glanced. Hee-jin happened to be looking at her, nodding and smiling at her, looking confident. Now that the reading has been completed, the final first place is still vacant. The atmosphere is obviously different and a bit restless. After all, there is only one place left. Either you will be the first or you will fail. Who doesn't want to return with honor, and who doesn't want to become famous in one fell swoop? So, when the examiner read out the name Soo-yoon, it still caused quite a stir. Her, Chinese, how is that possible? From the whispers below, you can hear that many people are unconvinced. The voices are not loud, but because there are so many people, you can still hear them. How can a Chinese be more powerful than us? He's so shady. The tasting competition has been held for so many years, and there has never been any shady incident. It is really unheard of. Isn't she a friend of Mr. Will's daughter? No wonder. Did Mr. Will tell her the question in advance? What kind of question is it? Just give the answer directly. There are a lot of things to say, but what is very consistent is that everyone is not convinced. She felt that it was impossible for her to win this first place, let alone be better than them. Wait a minute, I question this result. Someone raised their hands and raised objections. Even if Mr. Will is present, even if this game is very authoritative, it still cannot stand up to the contempt that comes from their bones. I don't understand why she pointed her finger in the direction of Soo-yoon, will be the first. Did she answer better than us? Did she perform better than us? How are we inferior to her? I hope I can give you the answer is convincing to everyone, otherwise this time, the competition will be unfair. Facing everyone's doubts, Soo-yoon's face did not change. She still looked indifferent, as if what these people were discussing had nothing to do with her and she didn't care at all. The examiner glanced at Mr. Will, and then said, "Please be quiet. You want to ask why Miss Soo can win the first place in this competition, right? Then let's return to the question itself, which is the finals just now. The last question, are you sure your answer is correct? Could it be that those two bottles are both the works of Mr. Weir?" Someone suddenly realized and shouted. If Mr. Weir does not agree with what the man said just now, it means that it is wrong. Since it does not mean that both bottles are not his works, then think about it conversely, both bottles are. The examiner smiled, then picked up a stack of paper, which was the test paper they had just finished answering. Here is the answer sheet for everyone. Almost most of them, after analyzing the raw materials and ingredients, and writing detailed explanations, will write their own judgment at the end. Many people think that these two bottles are not Mr. Weir's. Of course, some people think that they may both be. It's just that this item was not added to Miss Soo's answer. Others looked at each other. What does this mean? Could it be that it is right not to analyze it, just because we add our own judgment, no matter whether it is right or wrong, we are wrong? It's better to let Miss Soo explain it herself. He gave up his seat to the side and motioned for her to come forward. He also added, by the way, Miss Sue's composition analysis is the most comprehensive. Yes, it can be said to be accurate word for word. If you are not convinced, you can take a look for yourself later. Soo-yoon is a little depressed. She thought that it would be over after the exam, and she could go back after the results were announced, but she didn't expect this to happen. It was really a bit too troublesome. Helpless, she could only stand up and stand in front of the microphone. She did not rush to express her position, but turned to look at Mr. Will, who was sitting beside him. Before answering the question, I want to ask Mr. Will a question first. Looking at her, Mr. Will raised his hand to signal her to ask. I would like to ask, what is the meaning of this question? As soon as these words came out, everyone gasped. How dare you talk to Mr. Will like this? He is indeed a well-connected person. Looking at her deeply, Mr. Will gave the same answer again. What do you think? Everyone. I think you are testing whether everyone will be troubled by external factors and affect their own judgment, she said directly. In fact, the last question could have been left without labels and allowed us to analyze and judge. It doesn't matter whose work it is. But the purpose of putting a label on the bottle and clearly indicating who the author is just to disturb us and make people preconceptions add meaning to the work itself. We also know this, that's why we raise questions, deny the answers given by the competition, and make our own judgments. The person who spoke was still the one who raised the question before, and his dissatisfaction was obvious. No, you didn't. Soo-yoon directly denied his answer, which made the man's expression change. Soo-yoon looked around and then said, as the gentleman just said, you feel that you have denied the label given by the organizer, or raised questions, but you have not been affected. On the contrary, you are too entangled. Spending too much time and thinking on this label, whether it's questioning or guessing, is already confusing. Everyone was silent. At first, they were not convinced, but when she said this, they all felt that there was some truth in it. Someone then asked, expressing their confusion, Miss Sue, how did you answer? Didn't you ever doubt who the authors of these two works were? End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 188. Chapter 188 is a paradox in itself. Looking at that person, Soo-yoon answered seriously, who is the author? The answer itself does not mean much. What is tested in this exam is the analysis of ingredients and the quality of the work. It does not ask who the author is. So, if you remove the labels and completely return to the two works themselves, will your answer still be the same as now? She asked rhetorically. This question really stumps most people. In fact, if you think about it carefully, if there were not those two labels, it is indeed very likely that the answer would still be different. When answering the questions, they were really thinking whether this was really Mr. Weir's work or one of the projects that tested them. I spent a lot of time and energy on it, but I didn't expect that thinking about whose work it was would deviate from the core of the competition. At this time, her words have convinced most people. But there are still some people who are dissatisfied. I'd like to ask, Miss Sue, what you said is indeed very good, but you are so young and can think so thoughtfully. Are you really talented and smart, or have you done similar things before? The topic. His question was full of malice. It seemed like a very ordinary question, but in fact, it was a roundabout way of saying that she knew the topic already due to her connections, so she was able to get it right. Looking at him deeply, Soo-yoon said, then you are really presumptuous. Not only presumptuous, but also a little ignorant. As far as I know, there is no direct relationship between knowledge and age. There are people who are very young, but they are well informed and knowledgeable. There are also people who are very old, but they are crude and vulgar, like a frog in the well. Of course, I'm not talking about you. I just want to say that a person's tolerance and magnanimity have little to do with age, and I think that it's not the latter that makes you come here. She said with a smile, Her tone was calm, but every word was neither humble nor arrogant. She was obviously mocking his lack of knowledge, but in the end she saved him some face, so as not to make people too embarrassed. The man was so angry that he blushed and his neck was thick, but he couldn't say anything else. If he said anything else, it would appear that he was crude and shallow. Moreover, he was not questioning her, but Mr. Will and the entire competition. This competition was very complete and successful, and it also allowed us to see that there are so many talented people in our fragrance field. I believe that everyone in this field will definitely be able to create a world of their own and let the fragrance industry grow. There are more outstanding works in the fragrance industry. I announce that this competition is over and the winners will be contacted later to receive prizes and trophies. After the examiner finished speaking, this competition was over. Soo-yoon breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that she would never participate in this type of competition again next time. Really, it's not good to do research with peace of mind. Going out to socialize would give you a headache. Miss Soo, after the game was over, before she could leave, someone called her, "Mr. Will wants to see you, please come with me." Soo-yoon didn't know what he meant, but after all, this was still in the arena, and after the kidnapping incident, the recent security and protective measures were really comprehensive, so it wouldn't be like last time. Following the person to an office, he opened the door and sure enough, it was Mr. Will sitting inside. He watched Soo-yoon walk up to him and motioned for her to sit down. "Miss Soo really impressed me." Will's body leaned forward slightly, and his tone was not complimentary, but it was still affirmative. "Thank you," Soo-yoon replied politely. "But I have reservations about what you just said." Changing the topic, he continued, "You said that you are not affected by labels. Do you really think so, or is it just that you can't tell the difference? That's why. Did you use this rhetoric?" Without waiting for her to answer, he continued, "Of course, no matter what, your answer sheet is indeed more accurate than others. No matter from any angle, you are undoubtedly the first, that's for sure." It was precisely because of this that he called her over alone and did not say these words just now. "Actually, I am the same as you. I don't agree with the question you asked." In fact, the question itself is a paradox. She did not get angry because of his words, but said calmly. "Oh," Will raised his eyebrows, and there was a bit of disapproval in his tone. Obviously, he didn't take her words seriously and thought it was just her strong arguments to save his face. In fact, he was not very satisfied with the results of this assessment. He actually wanted to select the best among them as his disciples. But the results are unsatisfactory. Although Soo-yoon is the number one, from the bottom of his heart, he does not think that Chinese people can achieve anything in this industry. He is prejudiced from the bottom of his heart. By raising this question, do you want us to abandon the interference of other external factors and return to the work itself, regardless of the origin of the author, but only whether the work itself is excellent? She asked first. Will paused for a moment and nodded slightly. It was undeniable that he did think so in his heart. In fact, as a perfumer, what you should pay more attention to is the value of the work itself. Too many people now only focus on the name and labeling themselves as masters, so that they can sell it at a high price and praise the gods. As a newcomer, it is very difficult. It's hard to get ahead. He felt that this abnormality should be broken and everyone should put aside those messy thoughts. But you deliberately put a label on the bottle and deliberately wrote your name, but you just wanted everyone not to pay attention to the author. Essentially, you also paid too much attention to the influence of external reputation on the work itself. You want to use the author to disturb us, but also to prevent us from being disturbed. This is very contradictory in itself. Will shook his head. If you only focus on the works, you won't pay attention to this. Didn't you do it? Although I don't want to admit it, it is true. Soo-yoon laughed and said, "No, I just said that who the author is should not have an impact on the work itself, but it does not mean that I will not think about who the author of the work is. The work and the author are inseparable. As perfumers, we create different perfumes, and each perfume has its own uniqueness. Their uniqueness is given by different perfumers. The personal touch cannot be erased. Following her words, Will went from being disapproving and indifferent at first, to later slowly sitting up straight, nodding slightly, and the light in his eyes became different. He looked at Soo-yoon with interest. You are so eloquent, can you guess who this work belongs to? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 189. Chapter 189 An Attractive Invitation. Soo-yoon smiled. In fact, there is no need to guess. The personal style of these two works is very obvious, both with strong publicity and rich orchid fragrance. After a pause, she took a deep look at Mr. Wool. It's very similar to the perfume you are wearing. So your answer is? Unaffected by her words, Will remained expressionless, neither right nor wrong. These two items are both made by you and are your works, she said affirmatively. Are you sure? He raised his eyebrows and smiled. You have to know that a lot of people, I should say most people, gave such an answer just now. Moreover, I remember that it was very clear in your answer sheet. The difference between these two perfumes is huge. Yes, I'm sure, Soo-yoon nodded and said, moreover, the difference between these two perfumes is indeed very big, but there is one thing that I also wrote on the answer sheet. Their tone is still the same. But after that, so there is such a big difference because one is your previous work, and the other, I guess it is a recent work, or it has new changes and attempts. As perfumers, in addition to constantly producing new products, new creations, and inspirations, we will also constantly adjust and improve previous works. No matter how perfect the work is, we always hope that it can be better. And as you grow older and have different experiences, your ideas will change, so it is very common for you to try this. Mr. Will's expression finally changed. Have you ever known about my works? A little bit, she nodded. After all, you are a top perfumer. As juniors, we should have some exposure and understanding of the works of our predecessors. Then, can you tell me what your favorite and least favorite works of mine are? He seemed to be interested and asked more questions. Soo-yoon did not reject normal discussions and exchanges like this, and before she knew it, she started chatting with him for a long time. Time passed quickly until someone knocked on the door. Mr. Wool. He frowned in displeasure. What's the matter? The man opened the door, glanced inside, and said hesitantly, someone is coming to pick up Miss Soo outside. He looked at the time unhappily and saw that it was already very late. Unknowingly, time passed so quickly. He hadn't had such a fun conversation in a long time. In this short period of time, all his previous doubts and disdain were wiped away. Now when he looked at Soo-yoon, he was truly impressed. Soo-yoon, he called her by name directly, no longer the polite and unfamiliar Miss Soo. I appreciate your opinions and knowledge of perfumery very much. If possible, would you like to join me, come to the team? Soo-yoon was stunned for a moment, not expecting that he would invite her. Frankly speaking, it was a great honor to receive Mr. Will's invitation, and it was the greatest recognition, but at this moment, she hesitated. As a perfumer, she wants to make her own excellent works. Especially in recent years, her works have been named after others, and she has missed too many things. Although this invitation was really tempting, she still shook her head and declined it. I am very grateful to you, but I think I still want to continue to develop in China. I think the current company is very good, and I still have a lot to learn, but in any case, I am very grateful for your affirmation. Will was surprised. He didn't expect that he would be rejected. You must know that over the years, his invitation has never been rejected, and without exception, he was overjoyed to agree. You have to know that France is the cradle of perfume. It's not that I look down on your country, but China has not produced any outstanding and top-notch perfumers for so many years. You are really wasting talents in China, he said with regret. Su-yoon looked serious, and she did not agree with these words. No, I think what you said is wrong. It's not that there are no outstanding perfumers in China, it's just that many outstanding talents, when faced with choices, joined abroad. Some teams and research laboratories, just like now, I am also faced with a choice. Because of this, I prefer to stay in China. I hope that in the future, everyone will find that our country also has excellent and top researchers. The perfumer also has top-notch perfumes that sell well around the world. Mr. Will sighed with emotion. Okay. I respect your decision, but if you change your mind, you can contact me at any time. Thank you. Haha, now I can probably understand why that girl Lisa likes to be friends with you so much. Su-yoon also laughed. Maybe I prefer telling the truth. Ha ha ha. Mr. Will was very happy and sent her out with a smile on his face, all the way to the outside of the venue. Su-yoon saw the car coming to pick her up, and she knew it must be Sci-fi without guessing. Farewell to Mr. Weir, and as soon as we got in the car, we saw it was him, but Ren Zheng didn't know where he was. Where is my little assistant? She asked. I sent him away. Can she listen to you? Su-yoon was surprised. You must know that Ren Zheng, that little woman, loves to talk, is very obsessed, and is single-minded. Especially after she was kidnapped, she became even more nervous. How could she leave just because of a few words from him? I'm the big boss, why doesn't she listen to me? He raised his eyebrows, as if he was wealthy. Su-yoon was amused by his appearance, but of course she didn't believe his words. Really. Although she is not very courageous, she is strong-willed and very protective of me. Don't bully her. That incident of kidnapping, he had caused her trouble, and he had always felt sorry for her, and he regarded her as a friend from the bottom of his heart. You are quite good at protecting others. His tone was full of sour jealousy, but he still answered her. I asked Wang Shuo to call her and let her go back to the hotel to deal with a more urgent matter. Someone has already taken over the task. Su-yoon was really convinced. In the final analysis, it was better to use power to suppress others. She believed it. You also know her personality. She will fulfill the orders given by the superiors in a disciplined manner, but she may be a little worried about you. She will not leave until she sees the car arranged by the company arriving and confirms it. She pointed at the car they were sitting in now. To put it bluntly, she saw the car and only left after confirming that it was sent by the company. She had been chatting with Mr. Will and it was not convenient to turn on the volume on her cell phone, so she did not receive the call. She took out her cell phone and took a look. Sure enough, there was a message from Ren Zheng. Even the message was in a long paragraph of text, very casual and casual. She told her that she must confirm that the driver was sent by the company before getting in the car. It's better to contact the company again and don't leave the surveillance area at the entrance of the venue, etc. Looking at the dense text, she felt that the world is still very warm, and there are so many people who care about you. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 190. Chapter 190. He is really jealous. You've been in there for a long time, Yao said. It took so long that all the other contestants had left, so she waited for a while before coming out. Su-yoon nodded. Mr. Will stayed and chatted with me for a while. It took a long time. What did he say? After pondering for a moment, Su-yoon thought of Mr. Weir's words and felt a little emotional. He sent me an invitation and wanted me to join his team. Si Yao nodded repeatedly, that's really a high compliment. Do you agree? No, I refused. She shook her head and looked out the car window. The street lights outside were flashing. Paris is really beautiful at night. In this world-famous romantic city, it is indeed the cradle of perfume, with many big brands. Many classic styles come from here, and today, there was such an opportunity in front of her, but she refused. Rejected? Why? Si Yao paused and said half-jokingly, can't you bear to leave me? She glanced at him angrily. Her CEO was really narcissistic. I want to make my own brand, a unique brand. I want to truly leave a Chinese brand and a Chinese name in the Hall of Honor of Perfumers. Her eyes were shining brighter than outside. The bright lights are still bright and the stars in the sky are still dazzling. Si Yao looked at her profile and felt that his little wife was beautiful to the core. What attracted him in the first place was her confidence and perseverance. She is a person of faith, a pearl whose radiance cannot be concealed even if she falls to the lowest level. I believe you, you can do it, he said softly, giving the greatest affirmation. Lying lightly in his arms, Suyun felt very satisfied. It was really a blessing to have such a solid and warm embrace and someone who supported her and affirmed her. By the way, she suddenly remembered something and sat up straight to look at him. Zhang Shiwei didn't come to the competition today, which is a bit strange. There's nothing strange about this. Maybe she thought she couldn't win, so she took the initiative to withdraw from the competition. Or maybe she didn't want to participate. There are many people who shrink from the battle. He shrugged, looking unconcerned. Suyun shook her head, no, no. She is not such a person. She worked hard to get here, and tried her best to get to the end. There is absolutely no way she would give up at this time. Couldn't something have happened to her? Was she also kidnapped like herself? But that probability is really a bit too low, right? He looked at him suspiciously, is it you? The two of them had talked before and wondered whether the person behind the scenes might be Zhang Shiwei, but there was no direct evidence to prove it. However, given Si Yao's temper and personality, could he have resorted to tricks to get Zhang Shiwei to hold up his hands? Si Yao looked innocent, I didn't do anything illegal. Besides, such a woman doesn't deserve it. Looking at his eyes, it didn't look like he was lying. Thinking about it again, what he said made sense. She, Zhang Shiwei, was really not worth mentioning in front of Si Yao, so she couldn't afford him to do it himself. She frowned, thinking this was weird. After the competition was completely over, everyone who came to participate went back to their own homes. Her assistant was called back by Si Yao because the company had urgent tasks. Then in France, this was the two of them's private time. Aren't we going back? She was curious about where he was going to take her. Everyone was sent away, only him and her. I said I would reward you with a trip before, but it was delayed because of the competition. Let's make it up now, he said with great interest. He didn't know where he got a convertible sports car, and he drove her on the wide road, which was a bit romantic like in an art movie. But I made an appointment with Ariane and Zhao Xian before, she sighed, and she felt quite regretful when she thought about it. Detailed plans had been made before, but a temporary task fell through. Am I not better than them? While driving, he turned to look at her, with dissatisfaction written on his face. He is really jealous. From animals to women, he is jealous of all species and men and women. He is really convinced. Okay, you'd better concentrate on driving. Turn his face forward with both hands. Safety is still very important anyway. The person who was praised was happy, and a big smile appeared on his lips. As if to comfort her, he said, you travel with me this time, and come with them next time. Where do I get so many vacations? You think I'm so free? She muttered in a low voice. She thought she was like him and could take a vacation whenever she wanted. He was a big boss, but she was just a small employee outside. You forgot that I'm here. He turned to look at her and smiled proudly. Suyun. I suddenly remembered that in the past 2 days, he had called Wang Shuo directly, and the things he explained were all directly related to her. It was so direct that a fool would not know the relationship between them. Have you made our relationship public? She asked nervously. No, he answered smoothly. Seeing her look again, Si Yao held one of her hands and said, Wang Shuo should have guessed it. I didn't tell him, but he must understand you, it's my person. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do something and need more convenience, just tell him directly. Suyun pursed her lips and said nothing. I know you want to rely on yourself, but you don't rely on me. For example, if you come to participate in this tasting competition this time, even if the company recommends you because of me, if you don't have the ability, you still won't get the first place. I didn't control the game, so you're still on your own. Speaking, he took her hand and put it to his lips and kissed it. Suyun was amused by his serious look, and said, I don't blame you. It's best if you don't blame me. You know this kind of thing can never be covered by paper, so. Slowing down the speed of the car, he turned to look at her and said with great affection and seriousness, when are you going to clear my name? Suyun. Looking at his half-joking and half-serious face, Suyun's heart was filled with ups and downs. With his status, he didn't need to ask for her opinion at all if he wanted to make it public, or whatever he wanted, but he always kept his promise and respected her thoughts. He really valued her and cared about her. With the corners of her lips raised, she smiled and used her other hand to hold their intertwined hands and told him, soon. Soon. When she becomes stronger, she will have enough confidence and strength to stand by his side and declare to the world that he is hers. She is one of a kind. End of this chapter.